Yeah, Talaman, Geek Talk. Let's enjoy the show. Talaman always got a plan. Geek Talk is popping where it's really at. Represents geek culture, homie got structure. Sometimes it's vulgar, screw cast culture. We like movies, smart to say the least. Loving One Piece, man, really loves to eat. Everybody knows the show is really is Talaman. You know what time it is. Let's go, Geek Talk.
Greetings, my fellow geeks. Hope you're all doing well today, and we're beginning off this phase with a returning guest. Shayla, how you doing today?
I'm good, Tyler. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. For those that didn't catch the previous episodes that you were in, would you like to talk a bit about yourself, your podcast, and where we can find you?
Thank you so much. So I am Shella. I host the podcast I'm a Muslim and That's Okay. You can find me on every major platform. Just search up I'm a Muslim and That's Okay. And you can find me on Instagram at I'm a Muslim Podcast. And my website is www.imamuslimpodcast.com. That's the long and the short about me.
Terrific. Our episode today is How Long to Reboot. In short, we're going to be discussing how long we feel is an appropriate amount of time for a show, movie, program, etc., that needs to get rebooted because original ideas are no longer a thing. We do live in the age of reboots. We're also going to be discussing how they're different from such things as, say, sequel series or continuations, spin offs, or separate storylines because we hear so many different things on why are there so many Batman stories, so many Justice League stories. So, with that out of the way, let's start off with what is a reboot. In short, a reboot is a new start to an already established fictional universe, work, or series, which they just play off as the multiversal concept. Famous examples would include Star Trek The Next Generation, DuckTales from 2017, and Thundercats from 2011. Any other examples you feel like are worth mentioning? These that were really good reboots?
My God, the Ninja Turtles have been done to death. I mean, you gotta can't forget that one. The original came out in, I guess, 1989, 1988, and 89. I
I'd
grew
say
up on
87
that.
because the Transformers were 84. They had a good 3 year
Right, right.
run. Because I remember the movie came out in 86,
Mm-hmm.
but that movie
And
only existed to introduce new toys. I mean, introduce new characters.
right. New characters, new toys. That's what it was all about, and still is all about. We've discussed this before. Even if a movie does well, if it ain't selling toys, it's not really a hit. So that's how it sort of works in the animation industry. But yeah, Ninja Turtles is one of them, and gosh, there's a lot of reboots. Um, Powerpuff Girls had a reboot.
They didn't have an
I don't know why,
anime
but
reboot at one point.
it did. I didn't watch the anime, but because I would probably have to like go to illegal channels and sort of do that. I didn't want to do
And
that
considering
anymore. I
that
was
they
too big.
already look like anime characters, it would look even more disturbing.
Yeah, but here's the thing: when they did the US reboot, it's like everything that's rebooted. Our famous like plot of contention is always Teen Titans. That was also a reboot, and it's dumbed down to eternity. Same thing happened with the Powerpuff Girls. So yeah, Powerpuff
So do
Girls
we
is
blame this
another.
on lazy
My
writing, or do
Little
we just
Pony is
blame
another one
this,
of our
or
favorites.
so the question is, do we just blame this on lazy writing, or just blame this down on dumbed down audiences?
I am not sure. I think there is such a thing as lazy writing. I don't think it's a dumbed down out audience because from what I can see, there's definitely been a real evolution in what the audience wants to watch. That's why we've discussed this before. People want to watch so much more anime, and they want a decent storyline. You can go through most full length features. They want a good storyline. It's just they're never delivered.
Yeah, but can you think of as many stories that were as dark when we were kids? I mean, that had genocide within the first episode or within the first season, for that matter, like say Avatar or Gargoyles, for that matter.
Well, I mean, let's just say we have and when we go even before our generation, animation was really weird and dark. There's no two
Well,
ways
how
about
far
it,
back are we
okay?
going? Do we want to go
When
back to, like, say,
Oh, I
Popeye?
can go to like 30, 40s, Merry Melodies, Looney Tunes. It was pretty dark when you and Tom and Jerry, dear God, there was a whole massacre with weapons and everything. The only thing that they didn't show was blood. So, I mean, yeah.
Yeah, side note, when someone asks you to look at the Chinese censorship version, don't.
Yeah.
It's just it just makes it even more graphic.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, the thing is at that time, and have to see which generation it was from. This was a generation that had just gotten off the Great Depression, the World Wars, all of these things. Not that time, a lot of things were socially acceptable to be shown on TV, I guess, including, I guess, dark themes of killing people and using weird amount of violence. So yeah, the thing is, I think there is a thing that the storylines may be softer, but it's not necessarily that the audience can't handle a decent storyline. I mean, again, when you look at the
Can they handle it the
popularity of
same way
anime,
that
and
we could handle it? I think is the real question.
well, I think they can. Again, anime is far more popular now, and it's a good bit of gore and really dark stuff in there.
Okay, yeah, well, let's look at the Western content, or better yet, let's go back to our other two. What separates the reboots from our other two? The continuation. It still follows the original series, but usually with, like, say, a time skip of a couple years. Some examples would be
Yeah.
Batman Beyond, uh, Ben 10
Mhm.
Alien Force, or even Justice League Unlimited.
I think that was another one that's been rebooted to death. Ben 10 has been rebooted to death.
Well, technically, Ben 10 Alien Force, Ultimate Alien, and Omniverse are not reboots. Those are all continuations. The
Mhm.
2016 one, that was the reboot.
Right.
So,
So, I
common
mean,
mistake. I do
yeah.
get that, but but even then, it feels like it was too soon for a reboot.
I think that's the thing. And I just saw this. I think it was they're doing it on HBO. They're bringing out another Adventure Time, but it's not Adventure Time. Oh gosh, it doesn't have the original protagonist. It has I'm forgetting her name. Her and her cat. Do you consider that a reboot or is it
No, I
I
consider that
guess
a spin-off, which brings me to the
a
next
spin-off?
topic that I want to bring up. What a
Right.
spin-off is, which is different than a reboot. Can English say a reboot? Any narrative work that is derivative from an already existing work that focuses on the different aspects of the original series. Such examples include Daria
Right.
from
Right.
Beavis and Butthead, Cleveland Show from Family
Right.
Guy, or most famously,
Right.
Simpsons from The Tracy Ullman Show.
But here's the thing, like if you saw Daria was very popular. Beavis and Butthead was very popular, but even Daria was very popular. So yeah, the spin-off I think works sometimes. I don't know about reboots. That's where I'm sort of like,
Well, Star
is
Trek
it
Next Generation
necessary?
was a reboot, and without a doubt, the most successful reboot. Many of the actors there got their success from it, including voice acting,
Right.
which, honestly,
Right.
I'm not to bring up Gargoyles again, but Gargoyles is the only show that I know that has more Star Trek actors than Star Trek
Right.
itself. We got
Right. Right.
Jonathan Frakes, Marina Sitaris,
Mm,
Michael Dorn, Brent Spiner, Matthew
mhm.
Frewer, just off the top of my head.
Right. Right. But I don't know. I think Star Trek has some kind of like real magical powers because I think that's the only real succession of reboots or even whichever way you want to put it, that are decently successful. I'm sitting there like thinking like, ugh, if I had to look at the Ninja Turtle series, I was like that when they rebooted it,
I think you're the
and
only
not even
person I
once,
know
more than
that actually uses the word magical to describe Star Trek. Can I just point out the irony in
I
that?
know, but I know, but that's the thing. Have you ever seen anything on TV that can work across generations?
Oh, of course not.
Literally,
That's
Star
what
Trek
makes
started.
Star Trek so universal. Not only was it groundbreaking in
Yeah.
so many aspects, including the very first
Hmm.
interracial kiss. I've had this
Right.
conversation with quick shout out to JV Hilliard. Um, it's the most diverse casting without highlighting that it
Right.
was a diverse casting. It just
Right.
was, which I honestly got
And
to give them
that's the
respect
thing.
for.
Like mad respect for it. And it started in my parents' generation. Okay. And then I watched the next Star Trek, The Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, and Voyager. All of these were so TV, and now they have a new one out, but I haven't seen it yet. And like, I would probably have to subscribe to something, and I don't know if I should spend the money or not. But
Well, I
again,
mean,
it's very
let's call spade
successful.
to spade on this. How many streaming services do we have now? We have the anime exclusive Crunchyroll. We have the granddaddy
Hmm.
Netflix. We have the
Right.
blob Akira that absorbs everything Disney Plus. We
Disney
have the
Plus, yeah.
Hulu one, which is kind of like Disney Light.
Hulu.
We have the uh, Warner Brothers version, which is Max, and the Paramount Plus one.
Hmm.
So,
Right.
like,
And there's Peacock and oh,
well,
jeez
okay,
Louise.
7 of them are really good, and then there's a whole bunch of crappy ones.
Yeah. So I mean, again, I think that's the only thing that's stopping me from really watching the latest Star Trek. But again, it's spanned across multiple generations, and you cannot. I can't even think of one that's done it. And if anybody quotes like Star Wars, they're wrong. They're absolutely wrong because I don't know. It's at this point, I think just
I mean, the
Disney's just
best thing to
milking
come out
it.
of Star Wars was Mark Hamill, and the best thing Mark Hamill gave
Yeah.
us was his Joker. Which, side note, I would like to
Yeah.
dedicate this episode to Arlene Sorkin, who had recently passed and gave us Harley
Mhm.
Quinn, a phenomenal character within the DC franchise.
For sure.
And speaking of, I like to bring the last thing that separates the reboots from the other forms of storytelling, the storylines themselves. Now, particularly, this really applies more to comics, graphic novels, and manga than your other main
Mhm.
forms. In short, it's basically how these storylines are just built. Some examples include the Injustice film, based on the game of the same name, Under the Red Hood,
Mhm.
and the Flashpoint comic.
Mhm.
All examples of different comics or graphic novels being turned into a media adaptation, which the
Right.
second of which gave us the second best Joker. That, of course, being John DiMaggio.
Mm. Right. Right. And and that's the thing. I think when it comes to the comic world, for the most part, it works. And I think they consider it story arcs. When I was like, I have not read like a majority of the Spider-Man comics, but I really love
Well,
Into
which
the Spider-Verse because
Spider-Man?
of the animated version of. I'm sorry?
Well, which Spider-Man? There are several Spider-Man
That's
films.
it. That's exactly it. Yeah, they're like again the multiverse and all of that. So they but it's a very popular thing in manga as well to have story arcs. And then, is it a reboot or is it a retelling? How do you word that?
Well, that's the thing. Japanese media and Western media are very different. When a manga gets an
Mm,
adaptation, it'll wait several years to be rebooted, with exceptions like,
right.
say, Full Metal Alchemist Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood and Hellsing Ultimate only because they jumped the gun on that too quickly. I would say
But
that's their
here,
only reason.
Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood worked. It is still to this day one of the most popular anime out there. Even if it's a reboot, it worked.
There's no
So
argument
I
here.
mean, I'll give them that. But like I think a lot of the times what happens is when people are rebooting good ideas. I could take, gosh, like even if you had to take Ninja Turtles in its basic form, it's a decent storyline. If you like, you know, crime fighting turtles live under the sewer, they are like Spider-Man, they came in contact with radioactive stuff somehow. We're not even getting into how,
You know what's
but they
always
became
bothered me
superheroes and
about the
they're
Turtles? They're
what?
ninjas, they want to live in secrecy, but yet they have this big ass blimp that has their name and logo on it, and this big ass van that has their name and logo on it. Are they really trying to be that secret? Or are they just trying to advertise themselves?
Well,
Or is it
here's
like
the
that
thing,
South
where are
Park
they putting
episode?
all that stuff?
Or is it like that South Park episode? It's like, hey, buddy, don't notice us, guy.
Yeah.
We just want our privacy.
Yeah. But that's the thing. It's in terms of fantasy sci-fi, it's a decent storyline. When you're rebooting it, there is, you know, you can take a lot of creative liberty with it, but at the end of the day, what drives anything is a good story. What's the good story you're telling them? Or let's say the Thundercats. I grew up on Thundercats. We were like the kids who were pretending to be Lionel all the time. When they rebooted it, yeah, you could modernize it for an audience. It was a little darker and all of that, but it had no pull to it, really.
I don't know. I mean, I
I
thought it
couldn't even
had
get
a
through the
decent
first
pull.
episode.
The casting was actually pretty decent.
The casting was decent, but what is it that would excite the new generation? What excited it about us is that we had never heard of this story before, and you know, you could like really put your imagination to it. What was the pull for a modern audience?
Well, I guess there are some things in the 80s that can still work with the reboot today, like Transformers, Turtles. And then there are some things from the 80s that don't have the same appeal. Thundercats and
But here's the
He-Man.
thing. The thing with Transformers is, and that's minusing the movies. I mean, I'm not getting into that. Even with
Are we
all the
talking
reboots,
Wait,
the
hold on.
stories
Are we
were
talking the original one, the Bay abortions, or
the
everything
original
after that?
ones. I've seen only the original ones. I was so fed up after
Okay,
the
well, when you
first
say
like
original,
maybe
I think
two.
Transformers the movie with Leonard Nimoy and Orson Welles. That's what I think of
Oh,
original.
no. I'm talking about the live action one with what's his name? The little kid. Well,
Oh
he's not a
yeah, the
kid
little
anymore.
buff guy.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's what I'm talking about in terms of the movie. But like the animated reboots of it always had a decent storyline. And there's been multiple animated reboots of it.
Well, there
I
are
think that's the thing.
well, honestly, there are
That's the
some
thing
benefits of
with,
having reboots. As I've mentioned in my
yeah,
Beast Wars episode, it's definitely stood out as um, as what you call it. It's definitely stood out in its in your own way within the Transformers continuity. Let's look at the original
right.
Generation 1 characters. At first, we just had
Hmm.
18 Autobots and a shit ton of
Right.
Decepticons, and more were brought in.
Right.
Nobody knew where they came from. They were just brought in because money.
Yeah. I mean, they had to sell toys too. That's why they had 10 trillion Milo ponies too in the Cabbage Patch Kids. There were
Exactly.
about 10 bajillion of them.
But because Beast Wars took the CGI route, they could only fit so many characters. So each team
Right.
had teams of 5 and a couple extra every now and again. So instead of
Right.
quantity of characters, we get the quality of character development. As we
Right.
see with the Dinobot, who became the villain turned regretful, I guess, regretting hero to villain
Right.
to once again hero to knowing what he wants to saving all the
But again,
prehistoric humans.
that is with the story development. And that's great that these are not just robots. They are robots that are evolving in a sense. Like even when you have like human characters in reboots, they're not evolving. I think that's where the problem is that you've got decent characters, but where's the evolution of an actual story and character?
Not only that, but the several things in the Transformer lores were first mentioned, like the Spark, which is essentially the soul of all Cybertronians, whether
Right.
they be Autobot,
Right.
Decepticon, Predacon, or Maximal, or even the
Mhm.
Protoforms, which is basically like the infant version of any Cybertronian,
Right.
which in this form was more of a metallic liquid state, though that seems to change within the
Mhm.
continuity.
Again, but it's got something. I think when we have the difference between when we have like a Western reboot and an Eastern reboot, if my only experiences with anime, is that anime stories and decent stories, even when it's rebooted, has such deep thought into it and it has a huge backstory to it. You can take any aspect of the backstory and reboot it, and it would work in most cases.
Well, you say in your experience, other than Full Metal Alchemist
Right.
Brotherhood, do you have another one off the top of your head?
Oh, yeah. And this is, I think, I would say, well, let me think. What else was rebooted recently that I
Um,
can like
we
work off of?
had Yursei Yatsura, that was rebooted from the 80s.
Oh gosh, I wouldn't, I probably wouldn't watch that again. I haven't watched it. No, for sure. I
What
probably
else
should
got
check
an
into
anime?
that. But
Trigun. I couldn't watch it because
oh man, that was
Vash got
terrible. Oh
Vash got a
Lord Almighty,
haircut and it
that was
was
terrible.
just not suited
No,
them
no,
well.
it was like, yeah, they messed that up. I'm gonna like fully admit to that. They messed up Trigun.
Dragon Ball Z got a reboot, but it followed the same Full Metal Alchemist, which was more accurate to
Right,
the manga.
right. So I mean, I think, and I'm gonna be like biased over here. Is like the thing with what's happening now, especially when they do the reboot, it's and even in the anime world, they're running out of fresh ideas. So again,
We've had
Trigun
anime
was like a
where
victim of
people
that.
are turned into vending machines. I'm watching one where a guy's
Oh
living in a
yeah,
zombie
like
apocalypse and he's crossing
um,
stuff off his bucket
yeah,
list. And this woman's living with a
yeah.
giant bear sized cat. Yeah, Japan is running out of ideas. Not America, Japan.
Yeah, I mean, but at least those are not reboots. Let's at least give them that.
I mean, I would say percentage wise, 10%. I'm just spitballing. I'm not going to put a guess to it.
Right.
Don't quote me on this. I would say 10% of Japan's content is reboot, whereas I would say at least 50% of our content is reboot.
Oh yeah, yeah, for
That's a
sure.
fair number, right?
Right, it is most definitely. I
I
mean,
mean,
I would
especially
even
when you
quote
take
it
all
maybe
the
slightly
Turtles and
higher than 50.
Transformers and DC and Marvel
Mhm.
stuff out there.
Right. And it's not even all just reboot. It's and again, this is not exactly a reboot like we had Legend of Korra. It's not a reboot, it's
It's
more of
actually
like continuing the
it's actually
story.
more of a sequel series, honestly.
It's just more of a sequel series, but it's borrowing the same, the pull of the original without really having the story that is as compelling as the original.
Well, I mean,
And
couldn't the
that's the
same thing be
problem.
said between Dragon Ball Super and Dragon Ball Z? Not many fans were a fan of Super as they were with Z.
Again, you would know better. That's not my category of anime.
But with all said, yes, I do agree. Korra itself did not have the same pull. And I can see why it didn't, but it did tackle some serious issues, like
Oh,
PTSD
sure.
for that matter. I mean, honestly, what
But
annoyed me
here's the thing.
personally was that Aang
Yeah.
had to struggle and learn these elements, whereas Korra was just
Mm,
good right off the gate. That just bothered me more than anything else.
right. But and I was looking into this. Like the original Airbender ended in 2008, and
Would have been
Korra aired
2009 if it
2012.
wasn't for Shyamalan.
We don't talk about that.
Well, the
Shyamalan
only
does
reason
not
I
exist
bring
in.
that up is because had it not been for him, we would have gotten a sequel series that would have fallen more into
Uh,
the comics, like saying Zuko meeting his mother, finding out what happened
mm,
to Azula after the war, the relationship that happened between Aang and Katara. Just a few
right,
examples.
right. But that's the thing. Legend of Korra came out 4 years after the last Airbender.
I'd say it's
It
60
is it,
years.
the
Aang would have had died at that point.
No, but I mean the series is what I'm saying is that they fast forwarded to 60 years later. But
Oh,
like
you mean
this,
our
the
time 4
actress,
years, but theirs it would have been like about.
yeah, our 4 years. It came out 4 years later.
Hang on, let's do the
Um,
math on this really quick. Aang was frozen for 100 years, and he woke up when he was 10.
yeah,
He died
right,
at 60 year when he was 60, so that would make him 160. But then Korra
yeah,
was around 7, so yeah, I'd say about 60 years, give or take.
right, right. But what I'm talking about, like when it was like released on TV, the last Airbender was still so fresh in audiences' memories that there was the expectation for Legend of Korra was so high, and I don't think it could deliver onto that. It was trying to pull the audience into it because Airbender was so popular, but even now people speak like they cosplay the Cabbage Man, who only appeared in one episode, but yeah, got memes all over the internet about the Cabbage Man, but there's no Legend of Korra memes.
Actually, he was only supposed to appear in one episode, but then he just became a recurring gag character. And funny enough, he was actually voiced by the same guy who did Jackie, Shendu, and Chow from Jackie Chan Adventures.
Oh, wow. But yeah, that's the thing. What with because of that, like Legend of Korra was too close. I think for a retelling or like a sequel, I think it was too close for it to ever be successful even.
Well, I mean, there are other sequels that are done too close, like, say, Naruto Shippuden and Naruto itself. And Shippuden's done really
Mm,
well. Dragon Ball Z and Dragon Ball the original series. Z has done well. In fact, when many people say Dragon
but there
Ball, they automatically refer to Z, but everybody knows that there was a first
the
one.
right. But let's say and you've watched Naruto. I have not watched Naruto, so I am in no position to quote, but
I'm
you
more of a One
have the
Piece fan,
sequel to
but go
Naruto.
for it.
Yeah. You must have watched some part of Naruto, but they had the sequel which was with his son, the children. How popular was that? Is like that's my question to you. If you had to compare to the original.
The first few episodes were filler. What does that tell you?
So I mean, yeah, you gotta have to see that. Yeah, it has a very strong legacy. A lot of people love the original, but can you really make a sequel out of that?
I think the problem is a lot of the times people always compare whatever the sequel is
Mm.
to the original, that it doesn't have a
Even for
leg to stand
reboots,
on.
right? That's the thing. The
Of course,
reboots
then there are
have the
some
same
reboots that get
problem.
all the shit they deserve, like Thundercats Roar or frickin' Teen Titans
Yeah,
Go.
Yeah, and even like rebooted Dexter's Lab. It was terrible. It was
When did they
absolutely
do
the worst.
this?
Um, oh Lord. And this was like the original series with I forget his name.
Gennady
Jenny
Tartovsky?
Tartakovsky and Tartakovsky. Yes,
I feel like this is
my
that
again.
episode with Superman where he tries pronouncing Mr. Mixia-Spitalik's name.
But he stopped like directing the original series. This was, I think, around 2001, 2002. And then it was handed over to, I believe, Craig McCracken. But this was like 2005, 2006. So that was the beginning of the reboots. And then I think there was it's lasted for maybe a season or two season was another reboot of it in which they had completely dumbed down Dexter's Lab as well.
Well, sometimes when a series gets handed to a new director, a lot of times it
Mm-hmm.
itself does feel like a reboot. Gargoyles is a phenomenal
Yeah.
example of this. The Goliath Chronicles, the very first canonical episode, was the first episode. Everything else was filler. And by filler, I mean they did
Mm.
make a comic adaptation to it, and it did not follow the comics at all.
Mm. So I mean, yeah, the when it comes to reboots, it's just like, gosh, I don't know if there's a real time period that we can take into consideration. Like, how long should you
Well,
wait?
I
I
mean,
think the
let's look
real.
at the more successful reboots. DuckTales was a phenomenal reboot. That had a 30-year gap to it. Star Trek The Next
Mm,
Generation, that had a 20 some odd year gap to it. Beast Wars
yeah,
had a 10-year gap to it, but it compensated with great storytelling, great character
right.
development, and fun fact, the very first LGBTQ relationship within the Transformers lore.
Oh,
Do you believe that?
mm, no.
Well, it was actually an accident, believe it or not. You know how a lot of anime gets translated into English?
Right, right.
Well, a lot of our cartoons get translated in Japan. Tigertron was depicted as a samurai, and Airraiser was
Mm,
depicted as his young male ward. But unbeknownst to
mm.
Japan, they had a relationship, so there's nothing they could
Oh.
really do to avoid that. So they
Mm.
inadvertently created the first gay couple in Transformers lore.
Ah, very, very interesting. The more you know.
And knowing is half the battle.
Ah.
Da, da, da.
But
Which, now that I think about it, I'm not really seeing a lot of G.I. Joe reboots.
dude, like I think the original was okay. They did one reboot. And like I think there was multiple live action movies. They were all terrible.
Yeah, I mean,
That's
yeah.
yeah. But even though, like, here's the thing, GI Joe is another classic example. You've got decent characters that you could work on, like really dark characters,
I mean,
especially
don't
in
they
the
work for
villains
like
and
an
stuff.
underground
You
team
could do
in the
so much.
military?
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, like the good guys were like the good guys, and they're the standard good guys. Okay, it's like
So,
He-Man
like, clean
standard good
cut
guys.
Captain America good guys?
Oh yeah, yeah. They like from what I remember of the original like animation. I've never read the comics per se, but like the villains were like the best. Like the main Cobra, and he had his all his minions. Those were great villain characters. You could done so much with that, but no.
Well, I mean, it was the 80s. It just. Why is it.
Not in the 80s. Like in the 80s, like that was the standard thing. Like you only had good guy, bad guy, and there was nothing in between. But if you reboot something like that, there's a lot of story development you could have done with bad guys like that.
Well, I mean, not even reboots. Even in original stories, there's a lot of gray. Beast Wars, we had Dinobot that had a
Yeah.
lot of gray to him. Zuko, there's a lot of gray to him. Um, what you call it? Even in One Piece, there's a lot of gray with a lot of the characters.
in anime, like a lot of times, even with villains, they always try like for a backstory. So it makes the character more complex. It's not always evil for the sake of being evil. I'm not saying there aren't characters like that in anime, but they generally have a backstory as to what made them the way they are, in
Well,
a
let me ask you
sense.
something. Have you seen that Puss in Boots movie, the sequel one?
Oh yeah, yeah. I love that. The Last Wish, right?
Yeah, that
Yeah.
was it. It's funny they gave us three different villains, and each of
Right.
them were villains in their own way. We got
Right.
what was the fat kid? He was played by the same guy.
Oh my,
That
he
was the
little
big mouth.
little Jack Horner,
Yeah,
but
Jack
he wasn't
Horner.
little anymore.
Yeah, he was just evil for the
Yeah.
sake of being evil. No devastating backstory. He was just an ass for the sake
No,
of being an ass.
he was spoiled. I think that's what they were trying to get to, is that he was spoiled and he was popular as a kid, but as he became bigger, nobody adored him anymore with him just putting his thumb in the pie and taking it out. And that's why he was like, how dare people no longer consider me adorable? And he went all psycho at that point.
There's part of that, but I said he just wants things for the sake of wanting things. He had a parents that loved him, a shit ton of wealth, a
Right.
successful pie factory. Who cares if he was as
Right. Right.
popular? Still had all those other things. So there's that
The
aspect. We had Death, who is the inevitable
mhm.
realization, the enemy that Puss will never defeat, but realize that he'll
Right.
never stop fighting. And then there's
Right. Right.
Goldilocks, the villain who realized,
Oh
is
yeah,
this really what I wanted?
Goldilocks was interesting. Yeah, Goldilocks was interesting. That was like that came out of nowhere in a sense, but yeah, that was interesting. Her the story development was interesting.
It was, I just kind of think it's fucked up that these three bears took care of her, but she still wants a human family.
Right. Right, right, right. And that's, I think, in terms like if you want like a villain development like that, I think that's what they did well in that movie. That you're not expecting the villainy. I mean, like in Death, everybody has a thing for Death, but there you have this little girl that in the stories everybody loves Goldilocks. That's the thing that you're rooting for Goldilocks
Oh,
basically
I've
in the
never
Three Bear
rooted for
story.
Goldilocks. That you're basically rooting
But
for the two burglars for what you call it, for Home Alone if you root for Goldilocks.
right, right. But that's the thing. I don't know, for some reason, it's just that whenever you tell the story, it's like she was just hungry and tired, and she went in and ate porridge and broke chairs and slept on everybody's bed. But
Breaking
still,
and entering, stealing.
yeah, yeah. But yeah, but that was interesting. But like I said, I think when you look at full length features, they still have more complex story development in terms of characters and villains. I think that's what they're lacking when it comes to like regular series. And I think there is also the issue, again, we've discussed this before, supply and demand. A lot more people want streaming content and people binge
Well,
watch.
I think this really
And
comes
it's
to the
hard to
fact: do reviews even matter anymore? I mean, I could
mm,
say Velma is the biggest piece of shit, and then that comment will get like 500 likes. But as long as people watch that piece of garbage, it's going to get a second season, even if it's just for hate binging or high binging.
is it getting a second season? I didn't
From what
think
I
it
heard,
was.
yes. Like its only saving
Oh,
grace is
interesting.
having Frank Welker, the original Fred, as part of the as part of the
Ah,
cast. But even that's not enough to
right.
save it.
It's not enough. I don't. I wouldn't think so. And again, I think Velma is one of those really interesting characters that people have this weird fascination with, and it's been there forever, ever since I was young. Like it was of the Scooby Doo like gang. Like nobody ever had a thing for like really fetishizing any character other than Velma. Velma was the one that was fetishized the most, and I still don't know why. Um,
Well, I mean, let's face it, Daphne was the sex appeal. I mean, that's been done to death.
Yeah,
Let's try something new and different. We have two guys, so we're not going to go after
I would
them. And it would be
I would
weird to go after a dog, so by
yeah.
default, let's go for the shy bookworm.
I don't know, man. But that's I think there's always you can always add a lot of fillers for Velma because of how the original character was.
Well,
You
I mean,
don't know a
can't you add
whole
a
lot
lot of
about
fillers to a
her
lot of
other
these
than
old school characters? I mean,
yeah.
let's look at Bugs Bunny. Can we add a lot of filler to him?
Mm. No, I don't think not Bugs Bunny. You know who we can put a lot of fillers to? Uh Let me see if I can conjure up any maybe Wile E. Coyote. Like that would be one that you could put a lot of fillers into.
Elaborate.
Uh well, again, these were silent characters. Wile E. Coyote was always at the losing end. Always. It never mattered what happened. Wile E. Coyote was always at the losing end. So, like, if let's pretend we're going all insane and rebooting Wile E. Coyote in any context, you could really add any amount of character to him. Maybe he's really smart. It's just that he does not have good luck on his side. So I mean, you could do any number of things
I mean, there's
with
a lot
Wile
of
E. Coyote.
characters
It's
that
just
always lose, like Bluno from the Popeye series. He always loses, even though he's significantly
right,
stronger. I mean, why doesn't he just take
right.
the damn can of spinach? Why doesn't he just buy all the spinach in town and make sure
I
Popeye never has any?
exactly
Why doesn't he get
never
a
gets
band
the
that says
spinach. Right.
spinach is outlawed in this town?
Oh, you know what? What's one character that they did well when they removed him from his one dimensionality? Goofy. I think Goofy is the best character that they added more to him, and it worked. Like
You
in
mean like
the
when they gave him
original,
a son?
like you have when you have the gave him a son, gave him a life outside of being Mickey's sidekick, legitimately, and he was like the gag and the a gag in the side. Him and Donald Duck were gags on the side, and they didn't do much for Donald Duck. Maybe give him three nephews, and that's about it. But the
Well, he actually
Goofy,
was
I
more
think they did a
relevant
decent
in
job.
the DuckTales reboot.
Yeah, but like in the original DuckTales, he's just taking care of his nephews, even though where are their parents? I don't know. Anyway,
Yeah, in the original Robot Chicken one, their mom was a stripper, or I guess was a
oh,
call
jeez.
girl or something, and then that just
Oh
went
my god.
completely wrong. But in this one, she went to outer space and never came back because she was an irresponsible
Never came back.
parent. But she eventually
Yes.
came back.
Well, where are the dads? There's a dad there somewhere too.
Yeah,
Here's
in
their
the
dad.
comics, there's a dad, but if you go to the family tree, there is a dad, but there's a branch covering a picture of the dad, so it's like, is there a dad? I mean, do they have an equivalent of a sperm bank, but they can't show sperm banks because this is meant for kids?
No, but that's the thing. I think that like when you have a character like Goofy again, he was meant to be a side character, but they did well with him when they gave him his own series and his own movies. They gave him so much more depth and complexity. When you look at the original Goofy, okay, dude barely talks, legitimately barely talk, and has this goofy laugh
I mean,
to him. That's all he does,
like
and
that?
act stupid. Exactly. But in the series and even in the movies, you see another side to Goofy. And you're like, you have genuine like pull towards this actual goofball.
Well, this is a bonus to reboots. We have the continuity issue. Like, let's take the original
Mm,
Harley Quinn. She was
right.
Joker's side girl, hench girl,
Hmm.
who has a huge case of what's the technical term? Stockholm syndrome?
Oh
Was
yeah.
it?
No, Stockholm syndrome is when if he had kidnapped her, she technically fell for him psychologically. And there is a term for it. I can't remember it, but yeah, it's when you become obsessed with your own, I guess, patient in a sense.
Regardless of what the term is, yes.
Mm.
She was essentially Joker's hench girl in a very toxic
Right.
relationship. Who's, let's face
Right.
it, Joker's only boner crush is Batman's rivalry. She's just there.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Whereas, say, the Harley Quinn series, she's her own character, or even Suicide Squad, if we can take that step further. Which, side note,
Right.
I think the Harley Quinn series has just about run its course. I mean, the first season, it's like, yeah, okay, she's standing on her own character. She's getting her own crew. It's an interesting. Second one,
Right.
it's
Right.
not bad. Third one's, oh, she's becoming a hero. It's
Mm.
full circle. Now fourth, it's kind of becoming tiresome. Also, Kaylee
Right.
Kuwuko as Harley Quinn, not gonna lie, not the best choice.
It that's the thing. Harley Quinn is a good character. And even though in the originals, and I'm talking about way back,
Yeah, when
when
she actually first
Joker and Harley
appeared
Quinn,
in Batman the Animated
right?
Series.
Um, Harley Quinn is a very complex character, and even when we see her as Joker's sidekick, um, you have to be able to play that well. There is and that's what I'm saying. That there's a certain madness to her that you have to be able to evolve into as well. I don't think everybody's made to do that.
No, but there are some characters that don't do well in sequel series. There are some characters like
Mhm.
Harley Quinn or the Cabbage Merchant that were meant to be only one-time characters but gained so popular
Right.
that they were continued, or
Right. Right.
characters that were not necessarily within the comic adaptation, like say Harley Quinn, Bebop and Rocksteady, X-23,
Mhm.
or even Lockdown, but he became so popular over time that they were written into the continuity and essentially became canonical characters. Well, I mean,
Right.
not just Harley Quinn.
But like
She's the most famous example of the bunch. There were several
right.
characters that could fill that. Ace the Bat Hound, Terry McGinnis,
Mm.
Livewire, Volcana.
Mhm.
Who else we got from the DCAU?
Mm.
There are a lot of characters. Those are just a few off the top of my head.
Right.
But the point is, it really just shows you the benefits of having these reboots. Does that mean we need one every
And
every 2 years? No.
no. And I don't think that every story can be rebooted unless you're willing to really work at it.
Right.
Um like
Cinderella,
I mean if oh, come
Snow
on.
White, Little Mermaid,
Ah,
Jungle Book,
dude,
Pinocchio.
uh,
Oh, excuse me, I'm having a bit of a
Lion
sneezing
King,
fit.
please just just throw it. I just saw the weirdest thing, and somebody posted it that they're making an animated film based on the 3D version of the Lion King, and I was sitting there like, why are you doing this? Like that
Didn't
was already done.
they
Please
did
don't.
this.
They did that in the beginning,
Yeah, they
and
did
I
this
was
in the
like, this
90s.
is
It was
yeah,
called The
but
Lion
yeah, that
King.
was weird. It was called The Lion King, and that was weird. But that's the thing. You can't do these stories to death. Please don't do these stories to death. There's only so many ways you can reboot The Lion King. There and it's been done. You've got the
The
original, you've got the what do you call it? The Broadway show that lasted forever, and then you've got the 3D version of it, which like yeah, I
and you
don't
have the
recommend to
anime
anybody.
version, Kimba the White Lion, even though Disney will never give them credit for it.
That was not a version. We're calling that the original story, and we're gonna
Or
run with
we could,
that.
or the Shakespeare version, Hamlet, your choice.
Hamlet.
Yeah, they'll recognize Hamlet. You don't have to pay Shakespeare.
Yeah. They're not paying the makers of Kimba the White Lion either.
No, because copywriting.
Of course. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I think my issue is reboots in general if you're not willing to put the work in. And don't take it out too close to the
Well, let me
original.
ask you
I
something.
think there is
How do you
something
feel
to
about
be said
source
about that.
material for a reboot?
As in, like,
Well, okay, say we're making another Superman series, okay? Just no, scratch that. Let's
right.
say we've done enough Superman. Let's not do another Superman. Let's say we're making a series on Wonder Woman, okay?
Mhm.
I don't know how well versed you are into DC Comics, but based on your knowledge on Wonder Woman, how'd you feel about a series on Wonder Woman, assuming they can get it as accurate to the comics as possible?
I would not be crazy about it, only because I think if you took some of the basic concepts of Wonder Woman, like, strongest person on the planet, and where she came from, how she
Well,
came into
strongest
being,
woman on the
you could
planet.
keep the strongest woman on the planet. I mean, we're fighting against Superman, but anyway, um, and we took where she came from and kept that intact without redoing the story. I don't know. That's the thing. If we're redoing the story, how are you going to evolve anything?
I mean, there are a lot of ways that stories have been redone. I mean, Star Trek Next Generation had a new crew together. They went on a new journey, and that was done
They went
well.
on new journeys, but they never redid the old journeys.
Or, I mean, let's look at Beast Wars, for example. I guess a lot of people would consider that a reboot. It's technically a reboot, kind of a continuation, but essentially it's a sequel prequel series where the
It's a different
Maximals,
timeline altogether.
well, it's actually the same timeline, but they go back in time through a wormhole. So hence the sequel prequel on a prehistoric Earth,
Yeah.
and that's kind of how it's the descendants of 300 years ago, the Autobots and Maximals, which when the Autobots won the Great War, which is pretty much all of 84 through 87.
Right, right.
Or was it 86?
So
I'm not
that's
sure
the thing.
when. Either way.
It was early 80s for sure, because like sequentially the 80s were all Hasbro toys top to bottom. Okay, Hasbro owned
I mean,
every
Hasbro's
cartoon and
still
every
all
toy line.
toys today.
But the thing is, I think their stronghold on characters, I don't know, maybe they do still have a stronghold on characters, because I do think they do license Pokemon in the US too. Anywho,
I think it might be
uh
Nintendo,
yeah, Nintendo, sorry, that's my bad.
because I know the whole Super Smash Bros. And Pikachu and Cinnabar and
Mhm.
Lucario are choosable characters. You can
Right, right.
pick from it.
But point is that even with like Beast Wars, and there were a number of series, not just Beast Wars, but they also like did reboots. It was never the same. Like, you had the some basic Autobots, and of course some basic Decepticons, which were always there. You had Optimus Prime, and some of these that stayed. Bumblebee has always been the staple, but
Or even
the other
Starscream, which
characters,
actually kind of became a trope, funny
Starscream.
enough. And we have all the Seekers, which, if you take a look at the other reboots, whether it be the animated
Mm,
series or Prime, instead of him having the other Seekers, they're just his clones. He found 5
right,
protoforms and decided to clone himself.
right.
So, kind of
But
piggybacking
that's
on
the
how
thing.
all the Seekers look exactly the same, but with different colorations.
Right. I think the best way to describe it is, and again, it's coming back to my favorite movie these days. It's Spider-Man, Into the Spider-Verse and the Multiverse. It's the same story. Boy gets bitten with a radioactive spider. Okay, but it's told in a way that's not the same as the original Spider-Man.
Well, in some cases, it's a pig. In some cases, it's a girl with a robotic suit. Some cases, it's
But
a.
not even that. What in Miles Morales's universe, there is no Mary Jane. There is no what's his uncle's name? I forget.
Oh, Uncle
Um,
Ben. Well, it's
Uncle
actually
Ben. There's no
technically there
Uncle Ben.
is, but he's just not the main protagonist of it.
They're not the main storyline. And his aunt, again, I'm blanking out on her name.
And May.
They show her in the film. Anne May, yes. They show her in the film, but the plot does not revolve around her and his relationship with her because they're not connected. If they can do that with a Wonder Woman, then I'll be watching. I was like, yes, this is a good reboot. I'm a sit with that.
I mean, honestly, if we could find a Wonder Woman that can have a better appeal than a Kristen Wiig furry, then I'm all for that.
Ah. But yeah, so I mean, there is some good that comes from reboot. I'm not going to deny that. But at this point, we're all for churning out stories and we're hoping some of the old stories stick.
Well, I mean, there's some stories that look like reboots but aren't. Let me ask you something. Would you say that Young Justice is a reboot of Teen Titans?
No, I think they're separate. Um, I think story arcs, if you had to put it. I
I
wouldn't call
would.
it a reboot per se.
I would, and it's actually a trick question, so you passed. And this was another wonderfully written Greg Wiseman series. Um, it still focuses on a younger generation of,
hmm
I'm sorry, what are we calling them? Young future Justice League members? Young Justians?
Yeah,
Whatever the
I
term
mean,
is.
they're the understudies of the old people, like Batman, Superman. They're the understudies, basically.
Yeah, basically. Didn't Has Wonder Woman ever had an understudy? Aquaman has had an Aqualad.
No,
Batman has had multiple Robins. Uh, Green Arrow's had Speedy. Has Wonder Woman had anybody?
no, I don't think so.
Oh yeah, she's had Wonder Girl, but that
Really?
was like until the later
Wait.
seasons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
But
I'd never heard of
when it
that
comes,
one.
well, to be fair, Batman and Superman get a shit ton of spotlight because their comics sell a lot more.
Yeah.
Of course, now One Piece has officially outsold them, so yay.
I think officially One Piece is out episoded everybody.
Oh no, well, Sesame Street.
Oh, I mean, Sesame Street's been around for like, gosh, almost 60 years. So
Exactly.
yeah, that's the only show that would out episode anybody. But yeah,
Grey's Anatomy, maybe. Are they
oh
still making
gosh,
that?
that's been around for. I think I don't know. I haven't yet to watch a single episode, but everybody keeps going Grey's Anatomy. I was like,
An
yeah,
old colleague
maybe
of
when I'm
mine used
old.
to refer to One Piece as the Grey's Anatomy of anime. I wanted to call him out on that, but that's just so fucking funny.
Oh, and the other one was, and I feel really bad for this because I used to watch it and I used to love watching was Supernatural. I was like, they kept going on and on and on with Supernatural, and I was like, yeah, that needs to die. I'm glad it did, but still,
I mean, a lot of series go on longer than they need to. Get that thought out of your head. I know exactly
yeah.
where you're thinking. What you call it? Harley Quinn was definitely one of those examples. Like, could have ended at 3, could have ended at 2. Like, yeah, you're officially out of the toxic relationship with Joker. You finally settled down with Poison Ivy, but it's beating off a dead horse, which is getting old.
I think a lot of them do, which is the sad part. I think officially, like with the writers' strike going on, they they pay their writers a lot, and maybe somebody's going to come up with a new story and do a reboot, but then bring out a new story as well, please.
Well, I mean, Rick and Morty is going to get a season 7, but we're not going to get Justin Roiland.
Oh,
I have very mixed feelings on that.
uh, I
I
mean,
mean, if it's anything
again,
like the
that
same
one
voice
was
actor for Solar Opposites, it's going to sound very weird.
like having a new voice always like unless I don't know, like I've yet to
Well, I
see
mean, if
like
it's
a
like a
replaced voice
puberty thing,
actor.
like what they did for the Ben 10 series, Tara Strong voiced
Right,
young Ben. It's like, yeah, okay, makes sense. She voices younger kids. She voiced Timmy Turner.
right,
She voiced Bo
right,
in what you call it, Spirited Away. She has a thing for voicing
right.
younger men. But then in Ben 10, Alien Force, Ultimate Alien, and Omniverse, he's voiced by Yuri Yolenthal. I forgot. Same guy that does Sasuke in the English dub. I'm spacing on the
Right.
last name. Yuri Lowenthal. I'm probably butchering that last name.
But like even if like they went for like the route that his voice has cracked, it has to be done well. It has to have the same
Yeah,
spirit
they
of
were
the
kind of done
original
like
character.
this.
So yeah, that
Or
has
it's like
yet to
kind of
be
like one of
seen.
the funnier moments of Family Guy. Back when Family Guy actually was funny and not Seth MacFarlane just trying to push his political agenda. Or Simpsons.
Eh,
That's a show that's gone for too long.
that's gone for too long. Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that
I
we can
mean,
agree on. I mean, at least One Piece
there,
actually has a
you
story to tell.
the problem. The problem with The Simpsons is if they did take it off the air, somebody's going to reboot it. They will.
Yes, but instead of yellow, they're orange.
I don't know. Like again, I don't know
I
if
mean,
you can
I
do
don't
a
know. Do we have
Simpsons
to wait
reboot.
until every actor from The Simpsons to die for the series to be canceled?
Eh,
I mean, we already lost
I
the
don't know, man.
woman that voices um the young genius. I forgot his name. Martin.
Oh, uh, gosh,
We already lost the woman that
Millhouse.
voices. No, no, no. You know,
No.
no, the smart kid, the one that gets punched by Nelson a lot. He's smarter than Lisa.
Isn't that Millhouse?
No, that's the
Gosh, I
glasses
must be
one.
spacing on.
But anyway, no, we lost that kid,
No, I can't
lost that
remember.
voice actor. We lost the one for that voices Edna. I
Mm,
mean, let's face it. If we lose Dan Castellaneta, the Simpsons are pretty much screwed.
no, no, you can't. That's one voice you can never replace. And yeah, maybe
Maybe
that's I
Hank
don't know. That's what
Azaria.
they're waiting for.
Well, that and Hank Azaria or Nancy Cartwright.
Yeah, yeah. So, but yeah, that's a again. Some shows go on for too long, and some are brought back too
I
many
mean,
times.
well, Family Guy was actually canceled. It had like 4 seasons and then brought back, but now it's still going on longer than it needs to.
Right, right. I think that's what you should you really get into. How long does a show really need to go? Like
Oh, that's a
really?
situation depending kind of a thing. Like, there's this
I
anime
don't
I
know.
saw called Polar Bear Cafe. It was a nice slice of life thing.
Oh
50, only like
yeah,
what,
yeah,
50 episodes?
yeah. But that's the thing. I again, anime, it depends on the anime, can run long. Again, you have Naruto, Dragon Ball Z, all of these are more episodes than you can
Oh, to
throw a
be
book
fair,
at.
Naruto
Uh,
has like a stupid amount of filler in it. Bleach, stupid amount of filler in
eh,
it. One Piece, surprisingly, only
Bleach, yeah.
10% filler. Like, not a lot of filler in it at all.
Eh, right. But again, a whole lot of episodes. But when it comes to like, I don't
Yeah,
know,
but it also has a
Western
whole lot of
storytelling,
manga.
how yeah, that's true. Has a lot of like story it can base it itself on. Um, but like
Whereas
again,
Naruto,
in
that has
Western
ninja
storytelling,
ostriches and other. I don't know. I want to say there was an Elvis episode.
I don't know, man. Again, not my category. I'm strictly a 12 episode gal, okay? At most.
So
And I
anything
only
that's
made the
longer than 12
exception for
episodes. So even if it's 13 episodes, you're automatically done for.
no, no, no. The thing is, I made the exception for only maybe like two series. One was Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood because it's that good, and the second is Durarara. So those are the two that I made the exception for. The rest, I'm like, y'all better be getting to the point by episode 12. I'll push it to 13 if needed.
So my question is, should I still keep you for the X-Men series we're doing? Because we're only doing
Hey,
13 seasons. But at least
only
for
doing,
season
dear
1.
God. Hey, if you're not repeating the same story over and over again, I'll be fine.
Well, no, well, I already announced the episodes, but season 1 episodes with Mojo auditioning random Marvel characters just for Spiral to come back to find out about the X-Men. It's like, yes, I must have them.
So,
And for those of you that
I
don't
mean,
know,
yeah,
Mojo is essentially like a kind of a weird combination of a Spartan King meets executive producer meets toxic fanboy meets yellow blob. All wrapped into one very, very weird package. Yeah, I gotta say, I know I'm more of a DC fan than a Marvel fan, but as far as character designs go, I'm gonna give it to Marvel.
yeah. But yeah, hopefully, and I I'm hoping like DC can catch up when it comes to like making better movies,
Oh,
better
please.
series. But
DC's
yeah,
just
for
playing
now,
catch
you've
up
got
for Marvel. DC just needs to stick to
it
animation.
is.
I mean, let's face it. 3 of the best Jokers that exist are all animated. And they are,
Mm-hmm.
in order from least to best, Brent Spiner from the Young Justice series, John DiMaggio from Under the Red Hood, and, to no one's surprise, Mark Hamill from the DCAU and the
Right.
plethora of video games.
Yeah. So,
If I
but
had to
yeah.
pick a 4th one, it would be Jack Nicholson.
Oh, Jack Nicholson's was great. It was fantastic. I loved his Joker.
Yeah, it's funny. A lot of the times people can't be in the same room with him because he's just that crazy.
He is like
Yeah,
again, mad props to his talent, but yeah, I'm not having a conversation with this man.
yeah. But I did actually rewatch some of Anger Management for one of our episodes for the X-Men series.
Mm. So, I mean, he knows how to act. It's just that you might not be
Yeah, but he
entirely
also
safe with
did
him.
cause Shelley Duvall to retire from acting, though.
Really?
Oh yeah, The Shining really messed her up.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I'm not
Yeah.
sure if she's just really sensitive or he's just that good of an actor. I'm gonna let you
No,
decide,
man,
David.
I'm pretty sure his crazy is next level crazy. So yeah.
I'll let you be a side of that. But fun fact: the black guy in The Shining was also Jazz in the Transformers series, Scatman Carruthers.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it's actually one of the few voiceover works that he had before he died. He was also the Scat Cat in the Aristocats movie, as well as Hong Kong Fooey.
Mhm. Mhm. Again, the more you know.
And knowing is half the battle.
Mhm.
But as long as we're talking about the subject of reboots, let me ask you something. As a woman of color, how do you feel about all these Disney movies that are recasting once homogenized characters with POC characters?
I think the thing is again, for us in terms of representation, it's important. The whole I don't see a problem with a Black Little Mermaid. People can argue that it was originally a Scandinavian story that character should have been white, but it's like saying um it's like saying you can't have like you can't have like a generic character be anything other than white. Mermaid's a mermaid, not even real human. So I mean, there is very little to argue with that.
Honestly, I've never understand why people would want to have sex with a mermaid. The whole bottom part is fish, which kind of makes you borderline Actually, I want to say furry, but I don't know, scaly. Is that a term?
Again, a lot of the lore that mermaids come from is pretty creepy. So I mean,
Well, weren't they
if
originally based on
you're into
dugongs
that,
anyway?
dugongs, and plus the sirens and mermaids are technically related. So if you're into mermaids, you're into like being how would you say, serenaded to your death. So yeah.
Fair, but going back to what you're saying about representation, when they do this, and I'm not saying we shouldn't have these characters, but don't you wouldn't you rather have a new character instead of a new one or a
Here's the
reused one?
thing. Definitely, new characters are great. But here's the thing. There are literally how many? 6 princesses, 5 princesses, and
I
only
lost
one
track
of
of
them.
princesses. It's like there
But
are a
uh,
handful of Disney movies, but it feels like at least 20% of them have a Disney princess, or at least a
are
potential. But then, like,
yeah,
there's honorary princesses. It's like all you have to do is be a female, and then you're considered a princess.
there's tons of princesses. And from the original 2D versions, there's only one princess of color, and that is Tiana.
Well, there's
So, and
Jasmine
those are still Jasmine, yes,
and
but
Pocahontas,
she's again, hey, she was not a very popular princess. If you like see
but a
the
princess
lineup
not the
of the
same. That's
princesses,
like
and
saying how what you call it, how chicken's not a
I
popular
don't
form
even.
of meat, but it's still a meat. No, scratch that. It's
No,
like
no.
how
The
no,
thing is,
scratch
I don't
that.
even think
It's
I
like
don't even
how
think they sell
salmon is not the
Pocahontas.
popular menu option at a wedding, but people are still going to select it.
No, but the thing is, Pocahontas, I don't think she's even sold in stores anymore because how problematic her history is. They should have never made that animation. I have yet to see a Pocahontas being sold as a princess anymore. You have Merida, you have the sisters from Frozen, you have Tiana, you have Mulan, and you have the Little Mermaid, Ariel from the Little Mermaid. You do not have Esmeralda being sold as a princess, and you don't
Well,
have
technically,
Pocahontas
she
being sold as a
wasn't one.
princess anymore.
She was
Yeah,
a
but
gypsy.
if you had to go with a female character, she could have been easily could have been one, but she isn't. Again, she's a problematic character, and so is Pocahontas, and not neither of them are sold anymore. So I like I when I go around and I have like neighbors and stuff, they have like these little dolls that they carry around. It's always an Ariel doll, and it's always like Elsa doll, it's always a Merida doll. You
For
have
the record,
these
I definitely feel like
prominent.
Frozen got way too much credit. It's basically human Lion King.
Eh. And again, with Lion King, it was less story and more the soundtrack that became hugely popular. Frozen had the same thing. That one
Okay,
song that went on for years was, yeah.
yes, but I do agree with you. The Disney community definitely has been homogenized, to say the least.
Mm.
And I do
So
like the idea of them
now,
adding more representation, but I feel like it would, if you really do want to go over that route, why not just add more unique characters?
now they do have like from
Like Moana. Moana
goodness
was
gracious,
a
I
new princess,
Moana.
or
Moana's a new princess.
Raya from Raya and the Last Dragon. That's another example.
Raya is there. I'm not sure how, and from the one the
Encanto.
story with the house in it. Encanto. Oh my god, my brain's
Yeah,
not
although
working
that's
right now.
basically the
But
weird
yeah,
love
they had.
child between Coco and the X-Men.
But the thing is, they got 3 separate princesses out of those. So
Okay,
now
so we
they're
got like
adding
a
more.
Polynesian one, we got a Southeast Asian one, and we got a Latino one, Hispanic.
Latino.
I forgot
Yeah,
where.
Latino.
Something. I'm not sure if it's South American. It's South American, yeah.
Yeah. So now you have Latino princes in there as well. But by far still, even to this day, the Little Mermaid, is one of those, just like Snow White and Cinderella, like still hugely popular. And again, I don't see an issue with a remake with a person of color. And I don't think are they doing any more remakes? I have no idea, man.
They are, and they're
But
making Snow White a Hispanic woman, apparently.
interesting. Mm.
I mean, so
But
much for skin as fair as snow, but I decided to give up on
hey,
the whole live action concept.
yeah, live action in adaptations usually never work well anyway. But again,
Well,
it's a reboot.
it actually here it's working well for the One Piece one, which I guess
Oh,
technically
hey.
is which is one of the more successful reboots, considering that Oda, the manga author, did get involved.
Mm. And again, it depends. I guess situation from situation. But
I
yeah, I'm
think
not
that's a
crazy
fair
about live
assessment of it.
action remakes.
Well, what if it's a live? Well, what about those remakes that say, like, okay, remember those, like, you remember the film Beetlejuice, right?
Yeah.
Okay, remember when it got a reboot TV series? Dumb and Dumber, same thing, got a reboot TV series.
Yeah, I was bad. I mean, I don't know.
How do you feel about it going the other way around?
I I'm not crazy. Again, like let's say let's go with the Mask. Mask got a reboot TV series. Okay,
Okay, that's
it
another
was
example.
semi. Yeah, it was semi decent. Um, but again, it was decent for that time. If I had to like really like honestly put a thing to it, it was decent for that time. I don't know how much of it would work now.
I mean, there are several
Uh,
shows that can get rebooted, at least for today's era. Like, how familiar are you with Tailspin?
no.
Okay, well, that took place in the 30s, and that was a big deal for the show because it was a cargo company that relied on delivering their cargo with seaplanes. Now that we have Amazon and all
Mm,
this other crap, it's going to be near impossible for that to be a thing.
yeah. But yeah, I mean, again, I think anything, whether you're doing a reboot, a sequel, a prequel, I would really hope to God somebody put some thought into it. I think
Well,
that's
do
the
you consider
basics
a
of it.
prequel to
If
be a
we're
reboot?
having any art, I think prequel, sequel all comes into my category of you're taking the same big chunk of story and trying to sell it to a new audience.
Well, I
I think
mean,
the only other sequel that I can think of that was decent was is touted as being better than the original was Terminator 2. Terminator 2 was fantastic.
well, I guess this is like Dragon Ball Z all over again.
But like the first one, I after I saw the second one, I saw the first one, I was like, yeah, this is okay. It's not bad. The first one wasn't bad, but the third one was like, no, that should never have happened.
Well, I think it's a lot like comedy sequels. It's like we think they're going to do well, but are they really?
Yeah.
Like, let's look at Caddyshack 2.
Yeah.
Caddyshack was a gem of an 80s film. If you haven't seen this, I strongly recommend it and take it with a grain of salt because it is nothing like the comedies of today's era. Because the comedies of today's
Right.
era, I refuse to call them comedies because they're not funny. This is just
Right.
unhinged. Caddyshack is just unhinged comedy.
Right.
But then we get Caddyshack 2. We don't even keep any of the original cast members, and
Mm.
it's just basically we're gonna slap on the same logo, call it a sequel, but give it a new cast.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
And I don't
again,
know why it does that. It just kind of feels like a middle finger to everybody.
yeah, it's just it is an industry trend to be riding on the popularity of at least some aspect of the original or something that just worked well.
I
It's just
mean,
there's no written actual evolution or thought process within the whole thing.
Well, I mean, there's Lord of the Rings, but then again, it was based off the books. The Hobbit, on
It
the
was
other
based off the
hand,
books.
I could have at least seen being a two-parter if you get rid of the filler
Mm.
parts. That stupid Legolas obligatory cameo, the elf dwarf romance, get rid of the Lake Town politics, keep everything else,
have
and
you
then
have
you have
you
ourselves a two-parter.
yeah, have you read the book, the original Hobbit?
I have, and I've seen the Rankin Bass animated film.
Yeah, I mean, I have not seen the animated film, but I started the story, and
If
dear
it's
God,
on
there
it's
was a
actually on
lot.
Max. It's about an hour and 13 minutes. Pretty well done.
It'd be less strenuous than reading the book. So I mean,
I
yeah,
wouldn't call The Hobbit strenuous. It's actually pretty well done.
no, in a sense that there's so much. I mean, his writing is genius. There's no doubt about it. But there's so much detail to it, and I think they took advantage of that in the films.
Speaking of which, let me ask you, how caught up are you on South Park?
Oh man, no, I haven't watched TV in a long time, so
You know the
I have not watched any.
okay, then you may or may not find this funny. You know the character Token Black?
I've heard of it, yeah, but I've not.
Yeah,
I've
yeah.
no.
Well, it turns out the whole time they actually made this a running joke in one of the episodes that the whole time his name wasn't Token Black, like he was the Token Black character. It was Tolkien
Right.
Black, like he was named after the
Oh,
Lord of the Rings.
the Lord of the.
It's like, oh, it's actually Tolkien? And Stan and his dad had no idea, but everybody else did. And Stan was actually called up Parchment. He's like, dude, did you name that Tolkien was actually named after the guy that wrote Lord of the Rings? He's like, yeah. Well, dude, I saw you wear a shirt that said Tolkien's life matter. It's like, yeah, so? Dude, you know it's spelled with an L and an I. Dude, that's spelled with an L and an I? That's fucking gay. Click. Here's another fun fact for you. Did you know that Carbon was based off the main character from what's that show? You know the main Spiteful there, Edith. What was that show? The Honeymooners. No, not Honeymooners.
Oh yeah.
It's gonna kill me now. Archie Bunker. He
Ah,
was based off of Archie Bunker.
Archie Bunker.
Yeah, he was a short, fat, white, racist kid. At least that's how he started off. Now he kind of became a little
Oh, it's
more different.
yeah.
But the
Evolution of character, I guess.
I call it a devolution, but
Yeah.
or devolution. What's it when it goes down?
I think we just created a word.
Well, that's a good thing about words. It's not like they're deer where you can just hit. It's like, holy shit, I'm about to hit the English language. So, but we've talked about the negative sides of reboots. Do you see any? Is there anything you would like to see rebooted? Like
If I
anything
had
that
to see
didn't get,
something rebooted.
like anything that you believe didn't have a good adaptation or didn't have a good director?
Hmm.
I mean, Suicide Squad got rebooted. I mean, even though
Yeah,
the director of DC
if I
hates
had
it.
to have something that needed to be redeemed, it had to be the Avatar movie, the Airbender movie, because the old one, the original, whatever like archive thing it has, needs to be burnt, and that needs to have like a good movie that went along with the series.
Okay, let me ask you something. That's 26 episodes in an hour and a half
No, no, no.
film.
Yeah, I no, but still, it was so badly done. That's the thing. It's not even 26 it's not even about the 26 episodes. Okay? It it was really trash. That's the thing. So,
Hmm.
they
That's the one I would have
they
chosen. I
did
would have just left it as a series because it would have worked better that way. In fact,
I
it's
know,
actually
but
going
you know
to.
that the thing is I would not have made a movie into it into a movie anyway. But Shyamalan decided that he wanted a movie, and that movie needs to now be burnt to a crisp, and somebody needs to do a do over for that one.
Here's the twist: the movie was terrible.
It was trash.
Him and his freaking surprises.
So yeah, that probably requires a redeeming arc. As for any other like animated story,
Well, it
I
doesn't
think the only
necessarily
one
have
that
to
I
be
would.
animated. Like, would you say Caddyshack? Could you see Caddyshack getting remade?
Hmm.
Or
I
can you
think that's the
say
thing.
Uncle Buck or Airplane getting remade?
Airplane. That's the other one. If they could do Airplane well,
But have you
I'd
seen all
watch
the
it.
risky
I
jokes
totally.
they have in that movie?
It's fantastic. That's the best part about it. It's fantastic.
It really is a fantastic film. Which, again, if
It's
you haven't seen it,
fantastic.
I implore you see it. Or
Yeah,
Revenge of the
Airplane
Nerds. I
is
want to
what.
see Revenge of the Nerds get rebooted, especially with this systematic
Yeah.
rape culture. I want to see how they handle that, or how many people can handle
So,
the kind of a laugh.
that's the one I would want to like. Airplane would be another that I'd definitely.
Did it get a sequel? I want to say yes.
Airplane 2 did happen. I don't think it was as good as the original.
Well, it's a comedy. Comedy sequels never do as well.
Yeah.
I think it's like it's some sort of unwritten rule. I can't explain it.
But yeah.
It's like how live action Disney films never do as well as their original part. Like when you get Aquafina
They
to
should
play the
stop
frickin'
doing it.
Janet. It's like, whose good idea is that? It's like,
So,
okay, so you can get rid of Kiss the Girl, but you can get Aquafina's rap song in there? Really? That's a good idea? That's the bar you want to set, Disney? Great modeling technique.
so I mean, again, I'm not a huge fan of live action remakes for animated anything. So,
And I just hope
um
DreamWorks doesn't follow that route. Because I gotta tell you,
I hope
a
not.
live action Poe would be really disturbing.
Yeah. Yeah, no.
Or Toothless. Or Shrek.
Toothless. Shrek.
Well, actually,
Or can you imagine Minions? Dear
well,
God.
that's really more of an Illumination thing, but yeah, they look like freaking Tic
Yeah.
Tacs.
Yeah, I mean, like if you're like taking from one medium to the other, that would be really weird.
Ugh, I hate those things. I can't,
Yeah, so I think
talk
again,
about
some things need to be.
talk about a spin-off that does deserve. They didn't even explain what they are or why they wanted to give into evil in the first place.
They don't give into evil; they're just following orders. That's what they're doing. That they're just made to follow orders.
Yeah, how come
They're
they
how
never
do you call
showed
it?
following
They're
Hitler or Mussolini? That I would like to know.
mm, I don't know,
Or
man. They
Genghis
were
Khan.
on a deserted island or something, and Groot found not Groot found them. I don't know.
Hey, Genghis
Uh,
Khan, Mussolini, Hitler. Can you imagine if any of these guys found the minions?
eh, I guess there
Or
was a
Attila
reason
the
they
Hun. That would
didn't.
have been
I
another
don't
one.
know.
It's like, do you want to bring in
Interesting.
elephants? No, we got minions. Do you want Nazis? No, we got
So
minions.
minions. I don't even think they show minions dying. So I mean,
Can
maybe
they
they're
die?
invincible. I don't know. I don't. I really don't want to find that out.
I kind of
Do
do.
they bleed?
I kind of do. And is their blood yellow?
Yeah,
Do
maybe.
they
Yeah, that'd
reproduce
be weird.
asexually?
How come the Simpsons' blood is red? Like, why aren't they yellow?
I mean, only some of them are yellow. Like we see like characters like Apu and Carl.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So
This leaves a lot of questions to be answered about fictional characters.
fictional characters, but again, they are not meant to be real. So I mean, that's why they're supposed to be animated and not turn into live action.
You would
That's
think,
the
but
bottom line.
apparently that's the misconception many people have about animation and I'll admit, a good portion of the
Mm,
demographic does belong to children because a lot of the time that is its target audience, but it's a medium that is
true.
meant for everybody.
Yes, most definitely. Um, in Western context, it's not explored as much. But in anime, it has all age ranges.
Though a
So
lot of the
I'm hoping,
times
like,
in Japan, people who are really into anime are kind of looked down upon.
oh yeah,
Which I want to
yeah.
give a shout out to
Again,
my co-host
it's
Mai
a
Tan. Thank you for the fucking weeb comment in our X-Men intro.
it's because it's part of culture, and again, everywhere around the world, nerd culture is looked down upon.
You know, I gotta say, Japan is a very fascinating country, if you ask me. It's thrived for thousands upon thousands of years, and yet its biggest exports are anime and manga, which have been really only around for not even a century.
Mm, like me, yeah.
I mean, it's produced swords, cars,
Mm.
several different pieces of cow, but its biggest pieces of exports are animation and their version of comics.
That it What anime and manga has done for Japan is the best kind of PR any country could have. And I would give it that it's the best kind of export any country could have, really. Because now you have people flocking to Japan like during Sakura season and different festivals just to experience what the Japan they've seen in anime and manga.
Right, and I gotta tell you, the Japan experience and the American experience are two different things. Like, as an American, if I go to a high school building, like, get off the roof. No, I want to recreate this scene from an anime. I will not be
Can
allowed to
you
do that.
imagine?
But if a Japan person goes to America, it's like, holy shit, I can get a burger anywhere. It's like burgers and pizzas is like that is our main source of export.
Yeah.
Burgers and
That
pizzas.
that's our main fast food is our export.
Yes, that's why many of our
Fast food,
yes, that's why many of our citizens are well-rounded,
well-rounded citizens.
so to speak.
So to speak. Yeah.
But I mean, if we're going to look at animation across the world, I don't really think they do reboots as often as the other countries do. Continuations
In
maybe,
Japan,
but not
yeah.
reboots.
Japan doesn't, and in terms of around the world, I can only say a very few countries have as developed
Well, we have
animation
Canada,
industry
where, like I
as
mentioned, Beast Wars,
we have Canada.
um, those Total Drama Island, and its sequel series.
Right.
England has
But
had
we
a
also have
ridiculous amount of good
England,
animation, and of course Korea
Korea, and even places like France. Like that's where the original Winx Club came from,
and
and the
Madeline, I
Incredible
believe.
Ladybug. hmm
Wait,
So
was Babar
they
French?
have no, but actually, the animated series was not French. The book was French.
All I remember is that he ended up marrying his cousin, and none of the kids turned out special.
Well, the thing is, at that time when Babar was written, you did marry your cousins, even in the Western context. So it surprises a lot of people, but yeah, it was not uncommon 100 years ago.
Huh? No, go
hmm
figure.
The more you know about history.
Yeah, I'd like to see a remake of Babar, but just leave out the "she's my cousin" details.
So, I mean, I don't think, like, again, there's certain things like Winnie the Pooh would not do well, I think, generationally.
What are you talking
Uh,
about? Winnie the Pooh is easily one of the more popular characters Disney has to offer today. If you go to any major
but
convention, Jim Cummings, they'll have he'll he's he'll do more Pooh Bear voices than a lot of the other voices that he does, and that includes Darkwing Duck.
Yeah, but how many kids have you seen that if you ask them, have you watched Winnie the Pooh? They'll be like,
I mean, without
I
their
don't know.
parents or older siblings introducing them to it, no. I agree with you on that.
It's not something that is currently streaming on like anything, and kids will be like, "Oh, I want to watch Winnie the Pooh." It's not happening.
No, but I mean, surely any Macy's Day parade, you'll come Christmas time, you'll see Pooh Bear and
The
Tigger down the parade.
the iconic Winnie the Pooh and characters are evergreen, just like Hello Kitty. Most people don't even know that Hello Kitty has her own series, but they only know Hello Kitty as the toy, like Sanrio's toy queen. So, but they have all of them have series of their own. And Hello Kitty had an original series of her own. It's just nobody knows or cares. It's like, I want a Hello Kitty right there.
Well, that could be
So I think Winnie
rebooted.
the Pooh is something like that. Like,
I mean, Disney has
I
pretty
don't know if
much
I.
milked Winnie the Pooh to death, and it did have a recent film. I mean,
Oh
not
yeah.
as recent as Encanto, but I would say within the past 10 years or so, and a live action remake
Hmm.
because it needed to happen.
Oh wow. Yeah, I've missed that one.
Yeah, you're not missing much. Like, Disney, get off your ass with all the classic films that have already been done well, and just do Treasure Planet. Seriously,
Something.
just something
Yeah.
that really didn't
Reboot
get,
that. I would totally watch a reboot of that if they did it
or
well.
Fox and the Hound, like something that didn't get a lot of spotlight, and
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah.
Just
But
don't
yeah.
do, just don't do Atlantis because I have a feeling you're gonna cast frickin' Zendaya and that Spider-Man guy. I want to say Tom Holland because I don't need to see that coupling again. That gets old really quick. We saw in the MCU that was enough for me.
So I mean, yeah, I would definitely, or I don't know, I would not want to touch Emperor's New Groove. I would like just leave Emperor's New Groove. No, we're not gonna touch
Yeah,
that
you
one.
can't handle the sarcasm that is David Spade. Also, it's kind of
Yeah.
hard to replace Eartha Kitt.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, you can. It's just I don't recommend it.
I don't recommend.
No, but with that, I think let's take a quick look at what we've discovered on our reboots. Reboots are essentially new, fresh starts. So to say, it's always good to have them, but we never really established when is a good time for a reboot. So we've discussed Turtles a lot. The original Turtle
Yeah.
run, if I'm not mistaken, was from 87 to 96. And then we
Right.
had the next series that began in 2003. So
Mm-hmm.
so do you want to look at from when it began or for when it ended?
From when it ends.
Okay,
Because
so
really,
that's about a
that's
7 year
when the
difference. Does that seem like a good enough time
right.
for a reboot?
I think it's a decent amount of time because one generation has grown up, and the advantage is that they're adults now. And they'd see a reboot and be like, "Oh, I used to watch this as a kid," and they introduce their own kid to the series. But the success of it is completely dependent on the fact of what is done with the reboot.
Okay, so I would say around 10 years. It doesn't have to be a complete 10.
Around 10 years. Yeah.
Okay, because because there's talks about Ryan Reynolds rebooting Alf. Remember that show back from the 80s?
Ah. Oh yeah. It's been more than 10 years for Alf. So I
At least
mean,
40. Like, I'm not even sure if
at
the
least.
original cast is still alive.
No, I don't think they are. I mean, the kids are probably alive, but not the mom and dad.
That's separating reboots from continuations, spin offs, and separate storylines that only affect comics and graphic novels and manga.
Mm.
So, Shayla, thank you for being here. And one more time, where can people find you?
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's always fun discussing anime and nerding out over it. You can find me on social media. Every place you can find me with the handle at I'm a Muslim Podcast. And my website is www.imamuslimpodcast.com.
Terrific. If you like this episode, give her as well as me a follow, subscribe, like, do all that other fun stuff. But most importantly, stay geeky.